Oakland progressives, because we say so. Landlords are evil. They make money off of housing. But wait, Cat Books and Barbara Lee are landlords too. Don't worry, they're not evil because we say so. Billionaires are bad, except our billionaires like Quinn Delaney and Wayne Jordan who live in Piedmont because they fund us. They're good because we say so. Cat Book says police are no better than slave catchers. Abolish the police until it's re-election time. Then suddenly police are good. And it's totally fine for Barbara Lee to push for 850 officers. Why? You guessed it, because we said so. The homeless are saints. Anyone who disagrees is cruel, heartless, and evil. Until we're facing a recall election, then we push for mass encampment speech with as little as 24 hours notice. And that's not hypocritical at all because we say so. Union busting is disgusting until anti-police terror projects rank and file want a union in order to peek at the organization's finances and negotiate for fair wages for staff. Cat Book says, fuck that, unions are racist now because she said so. Negative campaigning is wrong. We need unity, kindness, and respectful discourse. Until we're losing, then it's bombs away. Lauren Taylor is basically Trump, and anyone who's not with us is MAGA. Why the double standards, you ask? You already know. Because we say so. Gentrifiers are destroying Oakland and displacing the Black and brown community. Until it's the white gentrified vote that we count on to win close elections because they rent and trend progressive. How does that work? Because we said so. And that, folks, brings us to today's episode, how the gentrifiers voted in Oakland special election. And that, folks, brings us to today's episode, how gentrifiers voted into 2024 special election. And to that I say, the hypocrisy of gentrifiers delivering election wins to so-called progressives who simultaneously claim to oppose gentrification may be the most revealing narrative of this entire election. Let's get into it. First, if this is the first time here, peace. Welcome to Gotham, Oakland. I'm your host, Seneca Scott. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you're an ex, subscribe to this channel and Gotham, Oakland. All of that. Comment. Give me a like for the algorithm. Go to my YouTube page. Show me some love. I'm trying to get to 1,000 followers by June 1st on my YouTube channel and start to get on more platforms so more people can see this information. So first, I want to say that me personally, I define gentrification as the displacement of people and culture, not the arrival of new neighbors and resources. Let me say that again. I define gentrification as the displacement of people and cultures, not the arrival of new neighbors and more resources. I actually founded Oak Color Festival and Bottoms Up Community Garden were all meant to serve bringing neighbors into the lower bottoms holistically, bringing neighbors in who were typically called gentrifiers because I'm an Ivy League educated person. At the time that I moved to Oakland, I was just leaving being the East Bay director of SCIU 1021, very, very high-ranking labor union position. Some may have called me a union boss, although I never used that word personally. And I moved into a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house that typically will house a family. What makes me not a gentrifier? Well, what does? I rented. I came in. I may have displaced. It's the culture. We came to add to our neighborhood. And if you talk to people who actually are multi-generational from the lower bottom, they know our work, they know who we are, and we have manifested community quite successfully in our neighborhoods. And I'm very proud of that. But on to the election. It looks to me that this special election, let's start off by looking at Barbara Lee, our new mayor. Congratulations. Now, if you look further and if you're on your phone, you can go to the amazing Tim Gardner has an Oakland report on this. Election results follow a long-established voting patterns in Oakland, and there was also an article in the SF Chronicle that we're going to review on this program. But if you need to look at it and you're on your phone and you want to see the data, you can go to these and then see it yourself. So for those of you who can see, let's take a look at this map. Now, everywhere you see that's green is where Barbara Lee won. And everywhere you see that's purple, she lost. Now, make no mistake, if you look at the flatlands here, you're seeing this is a percentage vote by precinct. You're seeing a pretty resounding victory until you start to creep up in let's start with the deep south. Now, this is District 7 down at the bottom. I don't know if you can see my cursor moving around, but Ken Houston was stumping pretty hard. However, in the hills of District 7, which is largely populated by people in Oakland, lots of Black people, Latinos. The hills are I think they're probably majority white, but they're foundational Oakland in the sense that most people here have lived in Oakland for some time if they were not born here. And that's the case for large parts of Deep East Oakland. And none of these parts have ever been considered gentrified. Lauren Taylor did win all of these versus Shintao in his previous election in 2022, but Barbara Lee is a very, very powerful name, and many of the people down there have been voting her for 20 years. However, these areas do not vote at high percentages. The areas that you're looking at in the purple are actually the highest voting areas, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But what I want to draw your attention to are the highest places where she got votes. 100%, 71%, 70%, 71%. Now, if you can't see my cursor, you don't know what I'm looking at. To look in your upper left-hand corner. And what you're seeing there is North Oakland, aka the North Pole. They have a whole TV show called The North Pole about Oakland gentrification. Keep that in mind. And then you also have West Oakland. The lower bottoms in particular being very near the BART station, was probably the most intense area. If you include downtown Oakland and West Oakland by the BART station, that is pretty much the most intense area of Oakland gentrification in this city. They voted the highest for Barbara Lee. Very interesting. Let's move on to our next slide. Mayoral contest votes by district. Now, Lauren Taylor won District 4. District 4 is where the last three mayors have come from. Former District 4 council member and now recalled mayor, sitting right behind me, awaiting her jail cell, Shintao. Before her was Libby Schaff. Before her was Jean Kwan. All of them came from District 4. Why is that? District 4 votes at a higher percentage than any other district, second to only District 1. District 1 is North Oakland and what we call the Hill Hippies, or over there that borders Berkeley, which trends very progressive. We're going to get into that in a wonderful San Francisco Chronicle article that breaks down the voters, Oakland's electorate. Now, let's start again from District 7. Very low voter turnout. The lowest were in District 7 and District 5. Again, typical. We've seen this the last several election cycles. There is a divestment from any sort of sense of urgency from getting the working class to vote in District 7, which are largely Black and Latino neighborhoods. Now, they were pretty close. Now, not neck and neck by any means. That couple percentage points means everything in an election. But Lauren was close enough in those places. The biggest gap was District 4 and District 3. District 3 being the most gentrified. Lauren did not perform well in 3. He did not perform well in 1. He did not perform well in 5, which are largely Latino votes. Keep in mind, Kenny Houston and Noel Gallo, both pillars of the Latino community, all were stumping for Barbara Lee. Now, the title of this episode is Did Gentrifiers Win the Special Election? And that's why I'm focusing on the areas where Barbara absolutely crushed Taylor, 1 and then 3. And look at that. 3 is nearly 2-1. That's insane. Did Lauren Taylor campaign in District 3? This is Turnout with a total election counting the measure A. Again, you see 5 and 7 are very, very low. 4 is the highest. 1 is second, and 2 and 3 and 6 are like not great. They're like intermediate. This is the sales tax. There was not a single precinct where the sales tax failed. I think it's safe to say Oakland loves voting for more taxes. I'm not sure what's going on with our electorate. Typically, it's because they're parcel taxes, and we have a 60% renter electorate, and so it makes sense that parcel taxes would perform well because, you know, but every precinct, every single one. There was no counter campaign to Measure A. I don't believe a single independent expenditure was open to combat Measure A. So they pretty much had to lay it all to themselves to say whatever narrative they wanted about why Measure A was important. I will say, given that, I'm still a little shocked that not a single precinct, but the highest ones were, again, in so called gentrified areas. Let's look at Charlene Wang. Now, I believe the area that is purple, no, oh, just okay. Green means that Charlene Wang won it. Purple means she lost it. And even in the purple area, she was pretty close. She totally crushed this election. I don't think I've ever seen a harder working candidate than Charlene Wang this past two election cycles. So congratulations to Councilmember Wang or Wang or whatever it is. I'm not quite sure. But where she lost, those are Cleveland Heights and areas that are sort of gentrified by the lake. These are the apartment heavy areas by the lake that are transitory. Once again, signaling that the gentrifiers vote progressive. And these are largely white and more upperly mobile and educated neighbors. Welcome to Oakland. I welcome everyone here. I think there's plenty of room for all of us. And again, I try to use the air quotes on camera because I've given you my definition of gentrification already. Let's take a look at this voter turnout. Now, in 2025, I have 2024 special election. Oops, I should say 2025 special election. My apologies, I cannot fix it now. I've already recorded the episode, but ignore that. 72% of District 1 is registered to vote. 55 and 2, 53 and 3, 79 and 4, again leading. 44, less than half of District 5. District 5 is the most Latino heavy district. Less than half of District 5 by Fruitvale is registered to vote. District 6 comes in at 59%, and District 7 comes in, again, under 50%. District 6, although it does comprise of the flatlands, does have a significant portion in the hills, as you can see in this slide here. District 6 is the middle, right before. You got a lot of people in the hills. That's probably the most dense part of the Oakland Hills is in District 6. But the flatlands of District 6 are virtually not registered to vote. Now let's look at the 2025 special election. 31% of the population, but let's forget the population. Let's look at of registered voters. 43% of registered voters voted. Pretty bad. 34 and 2, very bad. 28 and 3. 49, the top and 4 were low and 1, resoundingly. Only 22 and 5, 31 and 6, and 22 and 7. Oakland has a voter problem. We have a voter problem. So I want to go through this article in the SF Chronicle that I think does a really good job, especially for a mainstream news publication. Something's going on over there. Maybe they're tired of losing readers and they want to come back to sanity. But this actual article was very, very, very interesting because it finally said the quiet part out loud. So kudos to Asim Shukla, Sarah Ravini, and Hosha Devalapalli. I hope I didn't butcher that. My apologies if I did. I've never heard it said phonetically, so I don't know you. Anyway, Oakland neighborhoods are grouped into 5 clusters. Which one are you in? Oaklanders voiced their displeasure with embattled former Mayor Shing Tao by ousting her in a historic recall last fall. On Tuesday, May must come together to pick her successor. Now, this was run before the election, so it doesn't have the data from the election, but it does go through consistent voter blocks. And so they mapped them out. I think it's a great map. Voters in Oakland's 100 odd precincts have weighed in on dozens of issues since 2016. We trained a clustering algorithm to see which parts of the city tend to vote together. You have this map here where you see 5 colors. Of course, beyond their preferences, not all parts of the city pull their weight the same way. In the 2022 mayoral election, turnout was far higher uphill than lower in the city's bayfront neighborhoods, as is typical. The city's divides are much more subtle than just engaged hills and apathetic flats, like Darwin Bangram likes to oversimplify. This is Darwin. Are you watching this, Darwin? You're probably watching this. You're one of my gang stalkers. Come on, Darwin. You got competition. People are telling the truth. You're not going to keep getting away with your propaganda, Darvo. For example, the algorithm found that Oakland has distinctively progressive west, spanning from uptown to the border with Berkeley and Emeryville, where a large population of left-leaning renters reside. I am a renter. I reside there up until 2022. I was far radical left, former union organizer, all for the power to the people. I still am, just not the way they are. But this voting block, as you see, North Oakland and the West, touching Berkeley, very progressive. That's where Carol Fife gets her votes, and Dan Cow. That progressive group has often stood in political contrast to Deep East Oakland, a poorer, more socially conservative corner of the city. I'll say that again, a poorer, more socially conservative corner of the city. Deep East Oakland, a little country called Deep East Oakland, is not woke. These are diametrically opposed places. Gentrifiers here, foundational Deep East Oakland here. Stop faking the funk. Shame on you, Oakland Against Gentrification Facebook page, for lying about this type of stuff. It's just disgusting. Everyone knows now. All right, we got an advertisement, and then we have the middle ground. But between them lies the melting pot of central Oakland, which has the city's most diverse and immigrant-heavy population and, at times, a populist voting streak. They don't vote in District 5. They don't vote in most parts of District 6, where this is at. Very low voter turnout. Uphill from these neighborhoods, as well as by Jack London Square, is a group of neighborhoods that could be called the liberal slope, where well-off residents support liberal policies. Notice they didn't say progressive. Finally, there are the hills, Oakland's whitest, wealthiest, and most economically conservative enclaves. A lot of black people live up there. A lot of old black money up there. Don't be fooled. Now let's look at the progressive West. Really, really good job. 40% white, 18% Asian, 15% Latino, 21% black. The black population is not voting, sadly. Mostly the white population is voting. And that is the 39% that's voting. I would say this, the poor people in lower bottoms virtually are not voting. They're virtually, I'm talking about less than 10%. Has a bachelor's degree over 60%, 76% renter, 21% foreign born. So all that, you're not from Oakland stuff, 1 out of 5 voters are not from Oakland or even America in the progressive West. All right. Social justice, blah, blah, blah. West Oakland is, when we go to West Oakland, there was a progressive conversation of whether policing is necessary at all. These voters were upset about hearing Libby Shappy pro-police. Well, Barbara Lee is pro-police. She wants 850 police, but I guess they dropped that for the time being so they could win. You know how that goes. We talked about that in my opening monologue. East Oakland, 6% white. The most socially conservative area besides the hills, that's the bell curve for you, huh? The hood. Elmhurst, Deep East Oakland. Mostly Latino. 31% Black, 33% Black, 51% Latino. Only 20% have a bachelor's degree. 30% are foreign born. 30%. Lauren Taylor crushed it there. Alicia Victory performed surprisingly well. But she also put a lot of shoe leather into walking around the hood. Prior to Charlene Wang, Alicia Victory, I thought was the hardest working political candidate. I wonder why she hasn't run for anything. Maybe because she had a new baby. I'm not sure, but anyway, that's not important. Let's move on to the melting pot. The melting pot, as described, very, very. I mean, this is like the bulk of regular Oakland. That's not deep east. That's like, mostly foreign born. 34%, 64% renters. Shing won this area, and pretty handily. At least it got 10%. Wow, 10%. Ignacio got 14%. And if that 14% had gone to Lauren, had Ignacio not been in the race, he probably would have won. Or if there was a ranked choice voting strategy between Taylor and De La Fuente, he may have won then. I noticed that De La Fuente was a Lauren Taylor supporter this time around. Very interesting to see. He did not support Barbara Lee, but instead supported Lauren. Then you have the liberal Slope, Rockridge, and Diamond District, Jack London Square. They're kind of progressive, but they're also kind of liberal. They're more like the yuppies. They're the ones who are liberals until their car gets broken into, and then they want to get more police. So until something happens to them, they're more progressive, and then something happens to them when they sort of wake up. To them, not their neighbor, not somebody they know, to them. And then we have the Hills, which we know are 58% white, 16% Asian, 8% Latino, and 11% Black. 73% who have a bachelor's degree. Only 14% are renters. So they all own. They pay the bulk of the taxes. They pay the bulk of the taxes. So they're voting a lot more cautious. Great article. Let me get some closing remarks before I get up out of here. We have a new mayor. Barbara Lee's platform is surprisingly moderate. We're going to talk about that in future episodes. But one thing in particular that stood out is all of a sudden progressives are eager about this charter amendment idea. But in 2022, when I ran on a charter amendment, every progressive editorial, every one of them said I was a power-crazed lunatic for wanting a strong mayor. We are a stronger mayor. We already had a strong mayor, and I didn't know what I was talking about. I can prove it. And if it was such a good idea now, why wasn't it a good idea just 2 years ago? And why was I the only mayoral candidate out of 10 who had this on my platform? I'll leave that for you to decide. Until next time, peace, Oakland. I love you. Please go see Sinners. Great movie. If you haven't watched my previous episode about Sinners, watch that episode next, maybe. If you got a little time, go for it. And if you haven't liked, commented, or subscribed yet, please do so you can keep getting me back every time I release one of these videos, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday every week. You can see me here in Gotham, Oakland, and sometimes a bonus one. Love you guys. Till next time.
Yo, I swear it's only up from here. Yo, I swear it's only up from here. Yo, I swear it's only up from here. Yo, I swear it's only up from here.